Hello, and welcome to the Outdoorsy Diva podcast. I'm your host, Lauren, the Outdoorsy Diva. Thanks for joining. I am so excited, you guys. We have an awesome guest today on the podcast. We have with us Bisa Myles from milestotravel.com. She is a fellow travel blogger, and she has agreed to join me for a really special episode because this month is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and I wanted to highlight awesome kick-ass survivors who are not only survivors, but they have a love for travel, for adventure, or for nature and the outdoors. So they're kindred spirits in that regard. So I wanted to highlight them. I want them to share their stories with us and their journey. And we will get into Bisa's awesome story. So welcome to the show, Bisa.
Thank you.
Okay, so Miles to Travel is your travel blog.
Yes.
How long have you been blogging?
I've been blogging for 3 years now.
Okay.
I started in 2016.
And how'd you get started?
Well, I actually started, I was diagnosed with breast cancer in November 2015. And when I finished treatment in 2016, because travel helped me get through treatment, it was something to look forward to. So I started my blog, Miles to Travel, because I still have miles to travel, after the
I like
breast
it.
cancer.
I get it.
Yeah,
Got it.
so it was kind of just documenting my journey and then traveling, and my survivorship was part of the travel.
So that is how long have you been in remission?
I've been in remission, so 3 years exactly.
Okay.
So
Awesome.
when I was declared cancer-free, then I created a blog.
Awesome. Well, happy cancer-free anniversary.
Thank you.
What do you call it? Is there a proper name to celebrate?
Cancer. What is the word? I do celebrate cancerversary. So but that's usually the day I was diagnosed.
Okay.
So that's my cancerversary. I celebrate all of the dates. End of chemo,
and you should. They're well-earned dates. And you're here to celebrate them, which is what is most important.
Yes. And that's why I created a survivorship plan. And I didn't like to call it a bucket list. I wanted to call it a survivor's list.
Okay, so you have a survivor's list in lieu of a bucket list. So can you share with us what are some of the things that you put on it? I'd like to know what you've already done and then some of those things that are still left to do.
At first, I started at 50 things in 5 years because the first 5 years of your survivorship. After you're diagnosed, they give you a survivorship plan that's for 5 years because those are the years that you could have a reoccurrence. So I was trying to mirror my list from that. So I don't know why I picked 50. It just 50 and 5. So it was things like learn a language, travel. Most of it was travel to different countries, but learn a language, hike Mount Kilimanjaro, take a photography travel tour, things like that. But most of them was just countries. And what I have completed so far is my first trip after I created the list was to Australia and New Zealand. So I spent a month just traveling around those 2 countries. And I've climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, and I went to India on a photography tour. What else have I done? Been to Mexico. So I haven't learned the language yet, but
hey, I think we can forgive that. You climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. Let's talk about that. So how was that experience?
It was exciting. I never hiked before this. I was kind of like you, just didn't grow up hiking, and it was actually a plus size travel. It was just plus size women. So that's what the goal was. So it was the training and just hiking, and I did have a meltdown, but because it happened to be, we were on the mountain, yeah, 3 years after I finished chemo, like the same week. So it was
Okay.
very special to me to be able to do something like this and to reflect that, just 3 years ago, I was
Right.
going through something like that. And, I didn't know I was going to be here 3 years later.
Right.
Yeah.
And you made it to the summit?
I did not summit. I made
Okay.
it to base camp, but that's
Okay.
still 15,400 feet.
How high? 15,400 feet. And how long did it take you?
It was over 7 days was the entire trip. So that was probably day 5 that we got to
Wow.
base camp. Yeah. So I decided I didn't make the attempt because I was sick. And what you don't know is you're hiking all day. And then I got to base camp at about 5 p.m. And then we had dinner like at 6 or 7. And then at 8, we were told to go to bed and wake up at midnight. I was just like, no, there's just no way that's happening.
Wow.
Because the goal was to be at the top at sunrise. And
Gotcha.
I decided that I was happy with my accomplishment.
And there's nothing wrong with that because you're
Yeah.
doing
So I
this for
watched
you.
this. Yeah. So I watched the sunrise from base camp, and it still was just as great.
And I'm just curious, how long did it take you to like train to try to get in some kind of hiking shape?
I started a year early. So I started a year early. I started just walking to the park slowly. Then I live in Indiana, so I'm near Indiana Dunes. So I started doing that. And so the group of us, we had a Facebook group and we shared training tips. So yeah, so for a full year, I, no, okay, it wasn't every day the full year, but it started the full year because I needed to buy boots. I didn't have trekking poles and all of that. But yeah, we created a plan. And so then closer to the end, I was trying to do like 3 or 4 times a week to hike a couple of miles.
That's amazing. Okay, so since then, have you continued to hike and to do more things in nature?
I have. I'm actually an ambassador for a group called Women Who Explore, and so I lead trips here in the area. Not as much as I'd like to. Sometimes I still go by myself because I just love to be outdoors. But yeah, so I try to do at least once a month, try to get out either by myself or with the hiking group.
After traveling, once you had completed your treatment and all of that, how is travel different for someone who's a survivor? Like from a health standpoint, are there things you have to consider?
Yes. So I have to wear a compression sleeve because I had lymph nodes removed and I had radiation. So that increases my risk of um, I have something called lymphedema where my arm swells. So for flying, I have to make sure I have the sleeve on. And I know a lot of people wear compression socks, but it's really more important for a cancer survivor to wear compression socks. And I actually, in 2016, after I came back from Australia, I got blood clots. Um,
Oh,
and it did turn a deep vein thrombosis, and it broke off from my legs into my lungs. So I actually was admitted to the hospital for 3 days for that. But because the risk of getting the blood clots is if you fall, which I fractured my ankle.
on the
Sometimes with
trip?
no, when I came back.
Okay.
So this all happened in like 3 weeks. So I came back from the long flight. I fractured my ankle, and my risk is higher because I was a breast cancer survivor because of the treatments can cause blood clots. So they don't know which of the three may have caused it, but it probably was the fall, or it could have been. They're not sure since all of that was a factor so close together. So I have to make sure I have my sleeve on. I have to make sure I wear the compression socks, and also I have a I have more anxiety than I did. Um, but yeah, I have increased anxiety. So when I travel, I used to try to like cram everything into a full day. But sometimes, especially with fatigue, that first year was terrible with fatigue, so I
Yeah.
couldn't travel the full day like I would probably normal do. So I would just do an activity and go back and rest.
Gotcha. Gotcha. But at least you do still go. And so I think that's just a great message for anyone else listening who may have health challenges or also be a cancer survivor that, that you may have to travel a little differently, but it doesn't mean you have to stop. I'm an asthmatic and it's seasonal, but there are times, where it really, really can affect me. But I just try to take precautions and I take my time. And like you said, you just know your limits and do
Right.
what's comfortable, but you don't let that be a deterrent for anybody to tell you that you can't do something.
Right.
So, how did you get bit by this travel bug? Like, where did your love for travel come from?
Yeah, I've always wanted to travel. Like when I was younger, I would like from history and geography class, I would hear about all these places and see it on TV and always wanted to go. But it wasn't until I was about 31, a friend of mine was working in London and she was like, why don't you just come? I was like, okay. And then ever since then, I guess until then, even though I wanted to, I didn't know it was possible. I didn't know how to make it happen. But once I took that first trip, like, oh, I just buy a ticket. And then
Right.
after that, I just fell in love with it.
I think that breaks the dam. That's kind of how that goes. Once you do it that first time, you're like, oh, I can go anywhere.
Right, right. Like I got a passport. Like I rushed my passport. Like in a matter of three months, she asked me. I had to put a rush on the passport because I didn't have anything. And then, but yeah. So once I did it once, that was it.
And so, how would you characterize your travel style? Like, do you like to be solo? Are you a group traveler? Are you budget, luxury?
I love solo travel, but I've noticed a lot lately since I've been doing more adventure travel. I'm end up in more groups. So like Kilimanjaro was a group. Like the trip I'm going on now to Iceland is a women's adventure group. And but I do love solo travel. I love to plan everything, and you know how sometimes not everybody wants to do the same thing.
Exactly.
And as far as budget or luxury, I like a good deal, but not too budget. I'm trying to get more used to hostels, but I have to have my own room and my own bathroom.
I actually have yet to try the hostel thing. I don't know. I know they say that there's nice ones and they're different, but maybe that's the diva part of my name. I haven't done it yet.
Well, the first one I did was in Istanbul, and I had my own room, my own bathroom. But
See, I can do that.
see
That
that,
I can do that.
and I did. So I still can't do the dorms. I did the dorms in New York recently because I had like 4 hours. I had to get on a bus to go to the Catskills, and so it was literally I just laid on the bed for like 3 hours.
Gotcha.
But yeah, the whole bathroom thing, I realized that I can't share a bathroom.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I have a thing about that. So, what did you do in the Catskills? That's actually the first place that I ever went skiing.
Oh, really? No. Oh,
Uh-huh.
I actually had one a writers like a small writers retreat in the Catskills. So it was Dream of Travel Writing, I think the name of it. So I was there for 3 days at her house, and we just went out and went to drinking and restaurants.
Nice.
Yeah, unfortunately, the weather wasn't that good, so we didn't get to do a hike. We were supposed to do a hike, but
Okay.
the weather's bad. So I need to go back because looks very beautiful.
So, how has travel changed you? How has it impacted your life?
I've learned to live in the moment. I am such a planner, and I always need to know what's next. So, but when you travel, I kind of forget all about that. I'm not. as obsessed. Like up to the actual travel once I get there, because I get there to the airport real early because I'm so anxious about the plane leaving me. But once I get there, and also having cancer helped me to learn to live in the moment too, and to put myself first. So
That's awesome.
lessons.
And I really want more people to see it that way. So what place that you visited so far has had the greatest impact on you?
um, well, two places. Going to Australia right after I finished treatment, it really it really affected me, and just really see how that was kind of first part of my survivorship journey for me. Because when I got there, because when you're in treatment, you're just going, going, going. And then I really just realized, what I wanted for my life and how I wanted to see the future. Um, I don't know if I had wrote this. I was raising my cousins. They were teenagers. And so everything was always about them. So I never put myself first. And so I just didn't know how to do that. But yeah, so going to Australia, taking that time for myself and really, really just thinking about my life and how everything happened. And then Kilimanjaro, you know,
And
that
for
was
just for
really
the
life
listeners who
changing.
don't know, where is Kilimanjaro?
Oh, it's in Tanzania in Africa. Um, I gotta tell you a funny joke that one of the women we were growing with, she was making fun of someone who said they didn't know where Tanzania was, and then I was like, yeah, I had to look it up on the map too. So it's on the
I
it's on the
mean,
eastern side of the continent.
eh, the continent, and that's what people forget. I get so annoyed sometimes when people just refer to Africa because it's an entire continent, the biggest continent. Like it's massive. So I try to, kind of educate as we talk about things so that everyone can learn kind of where things are and give them a visual. When I went to speak for Great American Teaching to a
Mhm.
class about travel and blogging and adventure and things like that. And it was a predominantly, minority student population. So these kids had never seen like a Black woman doing these kinds of things, right? Who kayaks and goes chasing waterfalls and flew across
Mhm.
the ocean by herself. So I brought them a map to put up in their room, like a dry erase board map, so that they could then visually see like where they live and then where the places we were talking about are. I just think geography is super important. And I feel like these days, I don't know, maybe it's just me that the same emphasis is not put on it, but I loved geography as a kid and it made me
Mhm.
like want to see these other places in the world.
Right. Right. Exactly. It's not the same. I don't even know um, if they learn. Do they really learn geography?
I mean, my son's 19 now. I think I do remember him having a geography class, but it was more, I don't know, it wasn't the type of geography the way that I learned geography.
Right. I remember us having to cut out the map and do like little puzzles, the map of the United States and things like that. So yeah, I don't think they quite learn it the same. But yet, yes. So even myself, because I know everybody expect because you travel that you just know where everything is. Like I haven't
Nope.
been there yet. So
But the beauty is that Google Maps is a free service.
yes, yes.
So, what is your inspiration for living adventurously?
I just love to meet new people and learn about different cultures. And then I just love being outdoors. And just the more, like we said earlier, the more you do it, the more you want to go. So that just inspires me just to keep going and keep learning about this world.
And let's talk about like nature, right? So, I'm like huge nature freak. So, um, what is it that draws you to nature? Like, what do you get out of that time that you spend in nature and outdoors?
Um, it's calming, you know. Like I said, with my anxiety and all those things, just being out there just it makes you feel alive and just calm. And I can't think of any place else I get that kind of peace.
I agree. Like for nature, like are you a mountain girl, rivers, beaches, water? Like what's your nature thing?
I love trees. I don't know,
Trees.
there's something about being in the forest or the or forest preserves. It's the trees. I don't know, something about it. Don't you sometimes you feel like it's a hug.
That's a thing. It's called nature
Is it?
bathing. Yes,
Is
that's a
it?
real
Okay.
thing. That is forest bathing. That's what it is. It's called forest bathing. That is a real, actual thing.
Okay, well that's good to know. I'm gonna write that down. But yes, I just when I'm out there, I just feel that comfort. Like I said, the peace. I love water too. I live by Lake Michigan, so growing up, just driving past it was always healing. But yeah, trees and water.
Awesome. And what advice would you leave with some of our listeners who either may be cancer survivors or they're just a little apprehensive about getting out there and exploring? They want to travel, they want to experience nature, but they're a little scared because they're like us. They didn't grow up doing it and they have, just fear that they think they can't.
Yeah. One thing I would say to survivors is just to be kinder to yourself. I just beat myself up a lot about a lot of things, and um, but I guess everybody can kind of learn from that, and also to just start off small. It doesn't have to be Kilimanjaro or all the way to Australia, because if you have the desire, if you want to do it, then then like I said, start off small. Start off with groups too. Groups are good if you don't want to go solo. I mean, I enjoy my alone time, but groups can be good. And yeah, just to do it.
Great advice. I'm so glad you were able to join us. You guys, Bisa's blog is Miles to Travel. That's Myles to travel. And you can also find her on Facebook and Instagram with the same handle. And I will have links to those in the show notes for the episode. Thank you
Well,
so
thank
much,
you.
Bisa.
Thank you, Lauren, for having me.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope that you enjoyed this episode. And if you did, make sure you subscribe to the Outdoorsy Diva podcast. Be sure to check out Misadventures of an Outdoorsy Diva blog on outdoorsydiva.com. You can also keep up with me and my adventures, so check out all of my social channels. Find Outdoorsy Diva on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest.